think about writing for the conversation, it's not just the benefits you'll get are not just that one article. It can help you develop your writing for more broader platforms as well. So it's useful on a number of levels, I think. So I just started 4 weeks ago with the conversation. I've got a lot of slides and we can sort of work through them at a pace that suits what you're trying to get out of it. But basically I'm going to share a few tips and pointers on how you can use writing for the conversation to improve your writing skills, share your research and build your personal brand as a scientist, but also for your institution and for your university. So I just started 4 weeks ago with the conversation, and prior to that I did a PhD at Adelaide Uni in the mid-90s in immunology, and then have worked in science communication and as a freelance writer until just a few months ago, well 1 month ago actually. So anyone who doesn't have an awareness of what the conversation is, it's a collaborative publication platform where editors work with academics to provide informed news analysis and commentary that's free to read and republish. So this was our front page yesterday. So we have to fit within the regular news cycle, so it's topical analysis and commentary, detailed research analysis, bit of politics over there of course, and a number of sections, including environment and energy. What did I do? Environment and energy. And I'm mainly in the health and medicine section, but because I'm the only Adelaide person, it's my job to keep an eye on what's going on in all sorts of fields and handball stuff onto the right editor. So if you've got an idea, if you need someone to talk to, if you want to chew the fat with somebody at the conversation, just give me a bell and I can point you in the right direction. So the way the conversation works is that stories are written by academics like you. My job is to support you to create a really great article, so you're never left floundering, wondering what the heck am I supposed to produce here. There's very strong editorial support. We do lots of back and forth, chat on the phone, lots of emails, and using the conversation platform to refine material to get to the point where you're happy and we're happy as well. And to work as a writer on the conversation, you just create a profile so it allows people to see who you are, where you work, what your experience is. So it's a professional, it can be a form of professional bibliography in a way as well. It gives people a point of contact. So other media might use it to find you for commentary on other stories as well related to what your expertise is. What's unique about the conversation is the authors are the recognised experts, not the journalists or the editors. So it's your name, it's your expertise, you sign off everything. You have a degree of control on the conversation that you don't have with other platforms, where you just have a quote pulled in by a journalist who's written the material all around it. Also, you may be aware that everything is published under a Creative Commons licence, so as long as it is attributed, it can be picked up by other media platforms and republished. So a piece that we put up last week on dietary fats, for example, has been republished by SBS. And there's a slide later that I'll show more of who picks up the conversation pieces. So what makes a good conversation story? These are the sort of regular themes that we publish under. So real-world events, expert analysis, policies and new public reports, your own research with the right angle. Clear practical advice is always popular. You know, people want stuff that relates to the stuff they're wrangling with every day, whether it's be with children or exercise or diet or pulling weeds out of their garden or managing their pets, that sort of thing. Interesting advice or checking the facts. So here's an example of an article that we published recently relating to the review of maternity or parental leave that the federal government is considering at the moment. So we knew that that would be of interest to most Australians, or most Australians in the sort of childbearing years, so we found some experts who were qualified to write on that topic.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So you're saying you commissioned that?
Yes. So it comes up in the general news cycle. We have a every Monday morning, well, every weekday morning, we have a conference where it's an all-in, right, what's happening today, what's in the news, what's coming up, and we decide what topics we need to cover on that particular day or in the slightly longer term. So we keep it as topical as possible by finding the right experts to comment on stuff that people are interested in more broadly. So that's commissioning. That's when editors commission directly a piece. That fits better within the news cycle on a daily basis, but there's also long-term interest in other stuff all the time. So that's when authors pitching ideas is more interesting.
I just wasn't all. It's not overtly stated as much in the conversation sort of mission that you do.
That we commission. Yeah. Yep. So if you're some authors, for example, watch the news closely themselves and will pitch something. Look, I see that they're reviewing the licensing around pets. And I'm a dog scientist, so how about I write something like this? So it does happen a bit that way for authors who are more aware or keenly watching the news and know where their expertise fits within that. So it's a bit of both. Yeah. So expert analysis, this was written by Cameron Webb, who's an entomologist. So he's written a lot about Zika virus, particularly when the link with what's that disease called? Microcephaly was emerging from Brazil. So he wrote a lot in response to that and does ongoing analysis of Zika virus as it relates to climate or Australian conditions or other news relating to Zika. So policies and new public reports obviously are in the news often because they relate to federal and state governments. So there's an analysis related to the Labor and Liberal election health policies in the lead up to the election. That would have been a commission piece, I imagine. Obviously, you're all aware of this story. I think what's really great about this particular story is it's not just a this is what we discovered. It's you go on a bit of an adventure with Alan. So how we discovered it. Most people wouldn't have a clue how this sort of research is conducted and the fun that can come with it. So they take readers on a bit of a journey through that discovery. Neither of the authors are here, are they? No. Clear practical advice. Everyone always stresses that the kids are on the iPad too much, so this sort of thing is always very well read. And this particular article came up because I think in the news last week or the week before, there was a bit going around that the compound resveratrol could help women struggling with infertility. So we thought, right, we're going to find out if there's any basis in that at all. So commissioned the right person to write that sort of analysis. And checking the facts or explainers are always interesting as well. We do a lot of political fact-checking, often stuff that comes up on Q&A, for example. We'll pull in the right person to do an analysis of claims that politicians make on Q&A show or other ABC or other current affairs programs. But health ones are always interesting as well to the general reader. And here's another one that doesn't have to be health. When this sort of picture pops up in the news, there's a peak of awareness of what sinkholes are, for example. So there's an appetite out there for people to learn a bit more and read a bit more detail about what they are and how they develop, kind of thing. So the question is, who does write for the conversation, and could you write for the conversation, and should you write for the conversation? So I guess I'm not sure, I don't think you've covered writing specifically yet today, but maybe I could ask you guys what is writing for and who is writing for, if you're thinking about writing beyond your academic circles. What's it for? Yep. Yep. For whose benefit? For them?
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So a public good helps people become more aware of scientific issues and evidence. Yep.
Yeah, so educational,
Yep.
emotional as well, maybe engagement as well.
So for your benefit as a researcher?
Potentially. So
Yeah.
you may well be trying to market your research in some way.
Yep.
Maybe attracting collaborators or
Yep.
people that want to be interested in your lab.
Yep. So professional development in a way. Yeah. Yep.
It might be to add some balance to some current discussions that are going on about
Yep.
a particular topic. So, as scientists, we probably have some experts' opinion in
Yep.
certain areas.
So you've written recently on stuff like that, haven't you? Yeah. Yep. So you.
So that there should be
Yeah.
a more balanced debate out there
Yep.
from what we see in the mainstream media, for example,
Yep.
about certain scientific issues.
So that feeds into the news cycle aspect of stuff. Yep. I think you're probably all scared to say, but it can work for you as well, personally, for your own career development, for finding collaborators you mentioned, but it can feed into writing grants, not just because people might be more aware of who you are and what you do, but because it will help you become a better writer, and that will benefit your grant writing, your fellowship writing, other writing that you may do in a professional sense.
We can also help scientific work that we do. So,
Yeah.
letting other scientists know about it.
Right.
So we have conversations,
Exactly.
Which increases citations.
Yep.
For your work as well.
Yep. Yep. And it will also get you lots of other media outlets pick up stuff in the conversation, so you build an awareness in other media as well. Whether you're interested in that, I'm not sure, but a lot of conversational pieces then lead to television and radio interviews, for example. So when you write beyond your academic circles, you're writing for you, you're writing for the audience, and it's important that you write to the audience. So obviously you're all familiar with writing publications, perhaps a thesis. I don't know if people produce theses anymore these days, but all sorts of grant applications, fellowship applications, and patent applications. So you're all probably fully aware and familiar with those sorts of writing. But other sorts of writing you may or may not have done include newsletters and other outreach, press releases, or working with your media team to produce press releases. You may have done interviews, which is similar to writing. Maybe you're involved in social media or blogging or writing for the conversation. So I think it's important to just keep in the back of your mind that any writing you do in this sort of format can be beneficial for your professional writing as well, and for your other professional activities. Whoops, wrong way. But the main thing to remember about those two slides is you must have an awareness of your audience when you're writing. So everything you write has a target audience. Each audience is different. Audience-targeted writing will be noticed, and it can benefit you. So I think I'm going to switch slightly now and start talking about what it is that in your work that will be valued by audiences beyond just academics in your field. So when you think about the value of your science, you can think about things such as the originality of your work, innovation in your work, what impact it might have, how relevant it is, the potential it may have, your achievements and your recognition, any reflections on a personal level you have, and the newsworthiness of your research. I'm going to skip through there and there. So in thinking about in terms of where your research fits into a news cycle, here are some of the features of what you may be producing in a research point of view. So perhaps if we could just take a few minutes to think about how newsworthy some of these aspects are. For example, would you say the impact of your results is newsworthy?
Yes.
Yep. What about the potential of your results? What about the commonness of what you're working on? Whether it's tell me, what do you work on?
Revegetation.
Beg your pardon?
Revegetation.
Revegetation. So is that an issue that is a common worry for most people, do you think, in the Australian community?
Probably not.
Probably not.
It could be.
Could be.
If you're replanting,
There's an increasing global awareness of the importance
Yep.
of revegetation,
Yep.
which is gathering.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about writing beyond your immediate audience, you might think about trying to convince people that they really should be more aware of it, and that is an issue of concern for the future. Yep. What about if you're publishing a piece? What about how important is it? What other news has been around that day, that particular day? Yep.
very important.
Yep.
So either it can be supporting news of the day,
Yep.
or it can be a light relief on
Yep.
the gloom scenario that happened that day.
Yep.
So, because the media plays out in quite interesting ways.
Yep.
People don't just want to hear everything about the
Right.
gloom. They want a bit of contrast.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. One of the things about the conversation is that there is a mix of a news cycle that is daily,
Mm-hmm.
global, etc. Many of the pieces that I guess our labs contributed,
Mm-hmm.
the relevance is not so much with the news cycle. The relevance is with how that can be engaged with the audience. In other words, if it's topical rather than say tied into a news cycle.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think the news cycle is as important as the relevance to the people and how
Yep.
they've been affected by the potential impacts of the science that we're doing.
Yep. I guess the point I'm trying to make is if you've got a piece that doesn't necessarily fit into the daily news cycle, but it is important and people will have an interest in, sometimes it's worth holding that off if there's breaking news in other areas. For example, yesterday we published 2 pieces on the Melbourne Cup.
That's the job of the editor.
Yeah, that's right. But I'm just encouraging you to think about what matters when you're thinking about news. And yeah, you're right.
And how you can use that to your advantage.
To your advantage, yeah. So someone wrote a piece yesterday on the use of Twitter to cover sports events, and because it was being used to cover the Melbourne Cup for the first time. Yeah.
He's off to a UN meeting in a week, and it's pretty relevant.
COP22.
It's pretty
Yeah.
relevant to the work that we do, so
Yeah,
that might be.
we've got a piece coming up on that later this week. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe from licensing one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So we also did a piece on, there was a lot of discussion around the research infrastructure,
Mhm.
because the previous government were going to cut the research infrastructure
Mhm.
as they passed the bill about basically privatisation of funding for students, and the research infrastructure was called NCRIS,
Yep.
so the National Collaborative Research Infrastructure Scheme.
Yep.
Very impenetrable kind of acronym.
Mm.
And so to be able to write an explainer of
Yep.
what that actually means and why it's important, that was a piece of
Yeah.
we did, which was connected with the news cycle.
Yep.
Which is quite,
Yep. Yep. So I guess if you think about how people will read material, there's if it fits into the daily news cycle or breaking news, there can be an initial peak of interest, and for really breaking news related stuff, that peak will be very high and then drop to nothing. Whereas longer term, more broad interest pieces might have an initial peak when they're published, but then the tail of the peak will be higher. So over the long term, there's broad interest in the sort of articles that Andy writes, for example. So yeah, if it doesn't fit into the breaking news cycle, it doesn't have to matter. You can still create good quality content that has a lasting interest over the long term. So the way to write great science for a broader audience is to think about your headline. Headlines need to be punchy but truthful. There's no point misleading your audience, and then when they click through from their head, it's disappointing. That's a move away from the initial clickbait type headlines that people tended to use when digital news first started spreading around the world. Having a great photo really does matter, but the editors will do that at the conversation. The opening lines of an article need to be really great. There's no point burying the main point of the piece way down. I'll show you the structure of an article a bit later, but in general, conversation pieces have a great headline, great photo, a few opening statements that give the audience a quick impression of what the article is going to say and a bit of context. And then if they decide to read on because they're interested in the piece, then it's broken down into more detail further on with, oh my God, that's sensitive. Subheadings to help the reader navigate their way through the article, because you imagine a lot of people are reading on phones these days, and links to support your evidence are very important. So the newsworthiness matters, the relevance matters, images, headlines, the evidence, and the clarity around interpretation. Yeah.
I have a question. Are the links picked up by the altmetrics? If you link a paper, conversation article, does this count to the altmetrics score?
Yeah.
It does?
I don't know.
Yeah, as long as it's got the DOI. As long as it links directly to the paper.
To the paper.
Where the paper is.
Oh, I see what you... Yeah. From within the conversation article, click through to your paper.
Yeah.
Does it matter if it's just viewed or read? I don't know that level of detail.
You have to
Does it?
click
No,
on the
it
paper.
doesn't need to be read.
Right.
It's just the link has to be there.
Yeah.
So the way you cite references in the conversation is by adding a link. So you select the word, right click, put the link on it.
So if they use the DOI instead of straight URL, that
Oh,
will give
the URL normally contains the DOI
Yeah.
if it's linking to the
URL
paper.
is fine.
Yeah, but is your question, will it link if it's
not to.
it won't, you won't
It's
get
not counted unless it's clicked by the reader.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I think Tulio.
No?
Altmetric doesn't count reads.
No,
Counts
you have to
links.
click on it though.
If you're reading a conversation piece and there are 27 links in it, they're all not going to be counted every time the conversation piece is opened up. Surely not.
No, just the actual.
What?
Altmetric, it doesn't just count scientific papers, it counts articles like in the conversation.
Yeah, so the same that there's a link in
It's
your
quite
article.
widespread.
Oh yeah,
Well,
yeah.
contribute to the
I see what
altmetric.
you're saying.
Yeah, it's not exclusively.
Right.
Your paper.
Yeah.
Been open or read, just because you've actually linked them.
Because you've included it.
That's enough to.
Yeah,
contribute to
that's
the
enough to
altmetric.
count.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I see what you're saying.
So
I thought you were talking about.
As one count.
One count.
Yeah. Not per reader, just because it's an
So
article.
it'll be the same,
Yes.
say, blog has, then that will contribute to the altmetric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So keep it in mind for your own, when you write for the conversation, you can
Cite
help,
your own word.
you can help
Yeah.
yourself and your
Cite your own
colleagues.
word.
Right.
But if someone else reads
And don't link through to the competitors.
Exactly.
Although the editor might pull you up on
I
that.
thought they had to actually open that link, but you're
No,
saying the link.
No.
it doesn't make
Use of the link makes it counted.
Yeah, but if you then share that conversation article, say on Twitter, you won't be increasing the altmetric score because you'll need to include the link also in addition to the link to the paper because it's already counted once in the conversation. But if you share that on Twitter, if you also include a link to the paper, so say you say whatever the title was, blah blah blah, found today, see conversation, and then you write paper, and then you have a link to the paper. That will increase your altmetric score again.
Yeah.
Is that that's kind of the question? Yeah.
So on the conversation, we try and encourage writers to use everyday language, how you would say it. We imagine our target audience are educated 16-year-olds, so someone with a bit of know-how, but not any in-depth knowledge of any particular academic field. So why would you say the question surrounding the continued use of industrial sites, given their vast pollution production, still remains, when you could say industrial sites cause vast amounts of environmental pollution, so why do we still use them? That can be hard, I know. But that's the sort of thing that editors at the Conversation will help you with. And often an editor might broaden it a little too much to the academic's taste, and then you bring it back again with feedback back and forth. So you sort of reach a happy medium. But it can be terrifying, I know that. Sometimes it can be useful just to imagine how you would say it to somebody if you were literally standing in front of a smart 20-year-old, and how you would get the point across of why it is what you do, and why you think it's important, and how you conduct your research. So the way to get better at writing is to practice. It takes time and it takes emotion, and it can be difficult, but it can be learned. I would recommend you picture yourself writing to a particular audience, no matter what kind of writing that you're doing. Write strategically. If you're really not sure where to start, then find someone you admire and literally copy them, and then you sort of build your own style based on that. Find the happy medium between what they do and what you want to do. Editing, you have to be brutal, and we can help you with that. And if you feel flexible enough to be allowed to be edited, it can be really, really beneficial. And I remember early on in my career, my PhD supervisor was absolutely brutal, but just taught me a huge amount about writing for all sorts of different audiences. That was Sarah Robertson, by the way. So within that context, don't be afraid to write for the Conversation, because we will support you in developing your writing, and it will benefit you not for that particular piece, but it will can benefit you beyond writing for the Conversation. So I think it's worth taking a punt on it if you want to start writing more broadly beyond your academic circles. So what will it do for you? Here's some stats from the Conversation now to give you an idea of who reads it and how many people read it. So started in 2011 in Melbourne. At the moment, we have about 3.3 million reads per month. We also share content through Facebook and Twitter, and we have an email list which is currently 112,000 every morning. We send out the newsletter to those readers. Because we are published under Creative Commons, we get a further 35 million reads per month through all sorts of different platforms. Some of our material we send out to specific publications, and just because we think they might be interested based on what they've picked up before, but others just scan what we do regularly and reproduce. They must reproduce it in its entirety, so they can't take snippets out of context. It's exactly as you've written it for the Conversation and picked up by other platforms. So there are 22,000 republishers around the world. Because I don't know how many of you use Facebook or Twitter, but now whenever you share something on Facebook or Twitter, the image will be picked up and used as the primary feature of that shared item, then the title of the article as well. And general readers love images, and if you can attract someone's attention with a beautiful image, you're much more likely to attract them to read the piece. Yep.
Absolutely. We've talked a little bit about how people really like videos.
Yep.
Tulio, you made that point, and I think that that's sometimes true, but can that be a bit of a disincentive? Because I spend a lot of time on the train. That's when I do a lot of my browsing of this kind of stuff, for the Conversation and blogs and things like that. And when I click through to something and then I realise that it's a video item, I don't watch it because I'm on my phone. I don't want to use up all my bandwidth. It's difficult to listen to on a noisy train and so on. And so I only find video useful if I click through it from an article that I'm already interested in and I can see how it's effective. But can it also be a barrier as well? If you're
I don't know the stats on it. I know young people love constantly watching snippets here and there. I don't know the specific stats on that.
Do you mind? Tulio's probably got some stats, but before you do or not
On
videos, on video being kind of the medium of choice.
No.
Well, I take your point, so because I'm the same at the moment. There's no way I'm going to have a video blaring, or it's easier for me to read an article in 4 or 5 minute chunks than to watch an entire video. That just would not happen. So I've found actually a compromise between that might be those Guardian style videos that you scroll through that come up with the text.
And the RAOs produces them as well.
Yeah.
The brouhaha.
Oh yeah, is that a similar?
So it's 2 or 3 minute embedded content, but the whole script of the piece appears at the same time. Yeah.
So you can have both of those options. But I still think, videos is a great thing, but I definitely think there are.
But it's got to be the right duration as well. That one of the terms people use is the social duration. So for a video, it's beyond 2 or 3 minutes. It's too long. So people maybe like you would be prepared to put their headphones in and watch 2 minutes of video on the train, but if they have to concentrate after that, it's too much.
It's not about bandwidth.
Right.
It's attention span.
I'm
pretty Gen Y and pretty lazy generally.
Yeah.
It's more about, I just don't have, when I'm at uni, it seems like not something I'm going to do, sit down and watch videos.
I guess it boils down to audience again.
Yeah.
So I don't know the stats on who watches videos, but I'll guess it's people, under 20 who are the main consumers of videos, I would imagine. And whether you're interested in reaching those people or not, it's the audience question. So for something like conversation, the ideal mix is great words, great images, and a 2-minute video as well. So people can choose what level of engagement they want to take up.
The video did not replace the art.
No, it's a supplement.
It was an extra thing.
Yeah.
I'll just share some interesting statistics on the audience of my own YouTube channel. The main demographic is 25 to 34, which is 36%, followed by 18 to 28, 28%. So, not that young. Surprising. Yeah,
there are social media reports who publish updates on this all the time.
Yeah.
Yellow Pages reports brings to mind.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yellow Pages. So
And it will also show you the breakdown of whether people are reading on phones versus computers.
Oh, yeah,
Increasingly becoming mobile, and things like Snapchat, they've shown that actually young people that are using Snapchat don't use it with sound, which is why it's so visual. It's not actually about sound. They can just click through and But in terms of communicating a message for someone that's engaged, definitely the video with the sound like Tilly is still good. Yeah. Sorry.
No. Anyone want to ask any more on that question of video?
What's the from the last slide? What's the geographic reach now of conversation? We started in Australia, but now it's getting.
We've got a small team in the US, small team in France, small team in the UK, and scattered people in Jakarta. I haven't got that slide in here, but Africa, all around. So each of those hubs produces their own region-specific content, but we also pull over stuff. Yeah. So we have every morning we see what the other conversations are publishing and whether we might pull that over for our audience.
I know you're only new into it. I've been a little bit exposed to the conversation. But for, say, one of your editors, what's the sort of time frame you're dealing with?
For publication?
With say, engaging with somebody's pitched something to you, engaging with them, refining it. Is it expected within the conversation to get some copy done in 2 weeks? Or, I'm just curious from our perspective, turning something over, what can we expect from the conversation to get something happen?
Well, I'm mid-email chat at the moment with an author. There's an embargoed press release coming out Monday next week, so I'm trying to chase him today saying, do you have time to write something for us? And I'll work with you on that so we can publish it on Monday.
Right, so you
sometimes
very fast turnaround.
Sometimes very fast, sometimes on the day. Very experienced writers do churn stuff out on the day and we publish it on the day. But that is unlikely if it's your first piece or you're not used to writing in that style of writing, it can take much longer, and we know that. So, often we make a phone call, can you produce this in the next 3 days? No, sorry, I can't. Okay, we get that you're busy. But if you want to start writing for the conversation, it can be a good idea to have your first piece with a bit of a longer time lag, so you can work back and forth over a week or so and get it right, and then the next time you do one, you'll have a better understanding of what's expected, so it'll be tighter from the start and a bit quicker. But we have regular writers who produce stuff very quickly for us, and then, it just depends on other commitments and whether you're prepared to take something on in a short time frame or not. Yeah. But I emphasise that we do support you very strongly, so we're not going to say, get this back to us by 5, and if it's not good enough, well, we're not publishing it. We'll work with you to get it right. Yeah.
Yeah, my experience is very good.
Yeah.
Very supportive
Yeah.
environment, reasonable deadlines
Yeah.
and timelines.
Yeah.
Harsh editing, but
Yeah.
often it comes back as a much more readable
Yeah.
article. So it's a very instructive process to actually go through that.
The editing is easy to take it personally, but it's just to make it meet the audience. If you keep that in mind, it's not a criticism. It's just, let's wrangle this and make it fit the audience better. Yeah. And it's worth picking up the phone if you're not sure, if you want to pitch something but you don't know if it'll work, just phone me and say, look, I've got this idea, what do you reckon? And I'll say, or yes, great, or how about we pull these bits in as well, or how about we hold that off till May when this is happening, and then it'd be really great and have a higher impact because of another news event that's on or whatever. Well, the media team will know often some of the publications that are coming up and when they're embargoed till, that sort of thing, you mean? Yeah. So that's and then you're restricted by the copyright of that particular journal sometimes, often. But then other more broad interest stuff doesn't have such a strict timeline in the media university journal publication world. But in a news world, there is a timeline because this particular event's happening tomorrow. So it's balancing those two things. Press release yesterday on sleep apnea. It was quite a small study released, and the journal and the institute put out a press release. So I rang the scientists and I said, just wanting to chat about the study, and we talked about this, how we'd done it and the number of subjects. And I said, do you think this will have any impact clinically now? And he said, yeah, probably not quite ready. But then we started talking about, it was about sleep apnea, then we started talking about sleep apnea more broadly, and it looks like he's going to produce an explainer relating to why men start snoring when they're 45, which I had a personal interest in. And I think most readers would have an interest in that, so we're going to get a piece out of it just because I rang him and had a general chat, and then we found out there was something else that might work better. So those sorts of stories are quite common. Yeah.
You don't have any ads. How does the conversation make money?
It's funded by university. The initial funding was provided by the Government of Victoria and universities, University of Melbourne and several others, and various other universities now contribute funding. Yeah, it's a not-for-profit. Yeah. So the reason articles from the conversation are picked up broadly basically is because there are very few science specialists in the mainstream media anymore, anywhere. The Adelaide Advertiser is lucky because they have a science journalist, but most do not. So if you're able to provide publications with top quality content with a great image and other bits and pieces like graphics or videos, people will snap it up. It's totally proven. So now a few stats on who the conversation readers are. We do an annual survey of our readers to update this sort of information. So about 50-50 male, female, about 20% are academics, and the rest come from more broad areas of society. More than half are under the age of 44, which may feed into that video type analysis we were talking about before. 85% are university educated, and most people would recommend it. people who read our articles like them because they say they discuss them with friends, they share on social media, sometimes they even change attitude or behaviour. Lots of comments on the articles often. I must have, yeah. And they also influence policy and business decisions if that relates to the sort of work that you do. I didn't mention also that to write for the publication, you must disclose all sources of funding and have no commercial agenda in the material that you're writing on, which is obviously true for the majority of academics. We currently have about 42,000 authors who've written for the conversation. The website is really great and easy to use. So as an author, you get access to the back-end editing platform, which most people pick up very quickly. So as I said, we set the readability index at about 16 years of age. All articles must be approved by the authors, so we'll never publish anything that you haven't approved the final version of. You create your author profiles, which shares your expertise with the audience. Comments are an important. You've participated in back and forth with readers of your articles, and yeah.
What on climate change?
Yeah, get the crazies coming along.
So you just have to ignore the knitters.
Yeah.
Because if you respond to them, you just feed.
You open the. But we have a comments moderator as well, so we try and keep a very close eye on it, and we do delete comments as much as we can, and if it gets totally out of hand, we close comments completely. So we do try and protect our authors, and so if you feel like things are getting out of hand, we just shut it off. Some pieces we don't ever open comments. For example, yesterday we published a piece on domestic violence, and we closed comments for the whole of the day because it was a Melbourne Cup public holiday in Melbourne. Our comments moderator wasn't working, so we wanted to make sure it didn't escalate without his supervision, basically. So we protect our authors as much as possible.
But the comments are really useful.
Right.
Apart from the knitters,
yeah.
You get some people that are genuinely interested.
Yes.
They might have, sometimes what you get is you might get a good response
to
what you've written. They haven't really read it. They've gone through it. And then they state their position.
Yeah.
And then you get a chance to refute that or add something to it. So it's a really useful dialogue.
And it's those N=1 changing of minds that you feel like can have an impact. It cannot be published without your final approval. So there's never going to be a change made and then sneak it in when you're not watching, kind of thing. That would never happen. Yeah. And maybe if it doesn't work out, you could repurpose what you've written for your own blog, for example. So you wouldn't waste or lose the effort you've made. If you feel it's just not going to work, then use it. A few suggestions I made on a piece last week, the author said, actually, no, I don't think that is the best way to do it. And I said, okay, because it wasn't critical. And if the author insisted, I was happy to let it. Yeah. So, yeah. And, picking up the phone if needs be rather than doing it all digitally can work sometimes as well. So more than half of authors who publish on The Conversation are then contacted by other media to discuss their work, including radio, print media, online news and sometimes television. And other benefits also arise, including research collaboration, at conferences. I won't read through these, but basically we have a lot of authors are really happy with the benefits that come with writing for The Conversation. I'm not sure if you're all aware, but as part of being an author on the platform, you also get access to detailed statistics on how many reads your articles get, the geographical distribution of the reads, and what else? Number of comments, and the time frame relating to reads of your article as well. And your institution also gets access to all of the content published by the university. So you can see here, University of Adelaide more broadly, over 5 million reads all over the world. This peak here is that piece about the Higgs bison, I think. No, that was a long time ago. That was the DNA analysis across Europe, I think. When you log in as an author, yep. And because your institution is a member institution, you get access to the institution. I'm not sure if individual authors get access to the institution dashboard or not, but certainly your media team would. But I'll need to double check if individual authors get access to this. So, and then you can see who's picked up your pieces for republication as well. So if you decide to write the conversation, you'll be connected with an established audience, with an established social media reach, and republished across the world. And it can help you work with other types of media as well. You can improve your writing skills, you can improve your personal brand, bring heightened exposure for your institution, and perhaps even create career opportunities. So that's all my slides, and I'm happy for you guys to ask any further questions you might have, or take the conversation into different areas that I haven't covered.
So we were, this afternoon we're going to be working on a range of articles from papers that have been recently published or about to be published. We'd consider that probably at least a couple of those might be good to think about a pitch to the conversation. So I know there's an online form to fill in to go to that. Any other tips for pitching? Because sometimes the conversation doesn't take up an article. So what are the most important components to put together a good pitch?
A great pitch. Number one, must have a great headline that allows me or any other editor, when scrolling through all the pitches, to see immediately what it's about and why it would be interesting.
How many did you get?
Hundreds every week. Yep. So, where's that? A great pitch. So, imagine it's like reviewing grants. Imagine you're sitting in front of 20 different pitches, Pitches, a great headline and clear factual information broken up into individual sentences rather than 3 long paragraphs that are continual and hard to process when you're scanning lots of stuff. You need to present the impact of the results of the research and some context. Recently, we discovered in our lab that elephants evolved from hippopotamuses. This is interesting because people always are interested in elephants, and they're declining in Africa, and they're declining in Africa. Taken further, our research may help to develop new methods for saving elephants. So, one sentence, what you found, one sentence, a bit of context, one sentence, why people might care about it. Does that help? What else can I say? Within the pitching form, there's also a place where you can suggest images that you have or animations that you have, other graphics that will support your piece. That can really push a pitch up in the ranking. And showing that you're aware of the broader news environment. So recently, Australian politicians have been talking about revising maternity leave. Recently, we published an article in this journal that showed that maternity leave was vital to promote bonding between mother and baby. So bang, this is in the news and I know it. Bang, this is my research and I recently published something new which sheds light on that news cycle. Pitches don't have to be wordy or long, but they must be clear and show you've thought about the broader implications of your work. Showing an awareness of audience is always very helpful. Pictures, graphics, little animations are always helpful. Yeah. If I can pull up a slide about pitching. Where's my bag? I'll have a look in a minute when I go on back to my laptop and I can show it to you. I didn't put it in this pack here, but yeah.
If you get hundreds of pictures a week.
Beg your pardon?
If you're getting many pictures a week or a day,
Mm-hmm.
can you physically read them all?
Our goal is to reply to every single one and let the author know yes or no. Sorry, this is not of interest at the moment, or yes, let's talk about this more, basically.
It would be better to sort of email you and say, hi Sarah, to alert you
Yes.
that something's coming.
Or to use me to help you pitch better on a regular, ongoing basis, basically. Yes,
Engagement, communication,
absolutely.
build a relationship.
And I can help you pull in stuff that you might not have thought was relevant. Yeah, definitely pick up the phone.
So that's where I've had most of the time from pitch.
In a room full of guests. So I'm partly there, partly around and about, and partly in my home office. Yeah. So, do you have a regular in-house seminar program?
We've got a few different programs, but are you thinking that you might?
Well,
One?
yeah, no, just to come and listen, so I know to keep up with the sort of work that you're doing.
Yep.
And then I'm there if you want to ask questions face to face. I do subscribe to your newsletter.
Yeah, so that's got all of our seminars.
Okay.
On it, most of
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm really happy for anyone to call, or if I'm around, flicking stuff between each other all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah.
Well, thanks so much.
That's great.
Thank you.